like to call to order the August 15, 2011 meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have Reverend Walter Gallup. He's a retired Air Force chaplain to deliver our invocation and to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone will please rise. Thank you.
By your leave tonight, I would like to offer a special prayer. This was a prayer that was written by General George Washington at the time that he surrendered his commission in June of 1783. And he sent this to each of the states of the Union at that time, recognizing that they had a big task and a lot of work ahead of them. So I would like to share this prayer with the commissioners and with the county. If I get my glasses out so I can read it. Let us pray. Lord, I now make it my earnest prayer that God would have you and the states over which you preside in his holy protection, that he would incline the heart of the citizens to cultivate a spirit of subordination and obedience to government, to entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another, for their fellow citizens of the United States at large, and particularly for brethren who have served in the field, and finally, that he would most graciously be pleased to dispose us all to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and pacific temperament of mind which were the characteristics of the divine author of our blessed religion, and without a humble imitation of whose example in these things in this time we can never hope to be a happy nation. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gallup. At 6 o'clock this afternoon, we had a work session to discuss code enforcement in Currituck County and see what kind of improvements and changes we can make to help that process through. Item number 1 is approval of the agenda. I have 2 changes I would like to make. I would like to add a closed session according to GS 143, 318.11.3 to consult with our attorney to preserve attorney-client privilege. And second, I'd like to add is 5A, a presentation by our Economic Development Director, Mr. Peter Bishop. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 2, public comment period. This is time to hear comments from the public on any points of interest. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. McCree will be our timekeeper, and we have our new superintendent of schools, Miss Allison Schuler. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to come and introduce myself and tell you how happy I am to be here in Currituck County, and to thank you all for your support of our school system. You've done a wonderful job supporting us, and I'm sure that's going to continue, and just wanted to let you know who I am. If there's anything I can do, please let me know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, when does school start so people can start being aware the buses are back on the road?
August 25th, our students come back. Our teachers and staff all come back this Wednesday.
Would like to say I've seen Ms. Scholler out in the community several times. She knows all the good places to eat.
Yes, I do. I'm buying local.
That's right.
Well, we welcome you back to Currituck, and we know you'll do a wonderful job for our children, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Schulter,
Yes.
I would like to comment. I noticed just a short message or news item that the board, for the first time in 40 years, have balanced their budget without using any excess fund. And I just like to say congratulations on that in this trying time. You get a balanced budget there. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Chairman, could I ask one more? How many students are you projected to open with this year?
You know what? That's a good question, and I don't have an adequate answer for you. I know that we are receiving new enrollments every day, so we'll be close to 4,000, I believe. I can get that exact number for you, though.
Get it to Mr. Scanlon.
I
He
sure
can
will.
distribute it. Thank you.
I sure will.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no hands, we'll move on. Item number 3, recognition of the communities of Point Harbor Beach, villages at Ocean Hill, and Pine Island as Firewise Communities USA. Mr. Rohr, if you will come with me, please. Glad to. Whoever the representatives are for each of those communities that are here this evening, if you'll join me up front.
Get by.
Mr. Mims, if you could come up too. I will let you do a little explanation about the Firewise program, if you will.
These communities were proactive enough, especially in our newsworthy times now where forest fires are dominating our news for the past several months and smoke going on to Maryland and everything. They have been part of a national plan of making sure that they mitigate damages in their area to forest fires. And they're well, this makes 4 of 20, approximately 20 such communities in North Carolina.
And it's in conjunction with the North Carolina Department of Forestry, correct?
Our local forest ranger, who was busy tonight fighting fire, spearheaded all.
Yeah. And we thank you guys for doing what you do in your communities. And with that, I will read one of them. It says, in recognition of Point Harbor Beach on being designated a Firewise Community, Firewise Communities USA community. Residents of Point Harbor Beach are to be commended for establishing Firewise Task Force and taking measures to protect their neighborhoods from fire. They're a role model for all communities throughout North Carolina. Presented by the Currituck County Board of Commissioners on April 15, 2011. Thank you. Next we have Pine Island. How are you, sir?
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you very much.
They all read the same.
Okay.
And last but not least, Villages of Ocean Hill.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
That's it.
Item number 4, proclamation supporting September 2011 to be proclaimed Hunger Action Month across the United States. Is there anyone here to receive that award? I will read this proclamation for Hunger Action Month, 30 Ways in 30 Days, September 2011. Whereas Feeding America is the nation's leading domestic hunger relief organization with a mission to feed and advocate for America's hungry throughout the nationwide network of members, food banks, and whereas the Food Bank of the Albemarle is a member of Feeding America and fighting hunger and poverty in 15 northeastern North Carolina counties by partnering with more than 130 local agencies to distribute food to the hungry. And whereas both the Food Bank of the Albemarle and Feeding America seeks to engage our citizens locally, statewide, and nationally in the fight to end hunger. And whereas the number of people in the Albemarle area who need assistance is increasing and reflected in more households in poverty and more individuals being unemployed. And whereas the fight against hunger is a fight that concerns each of us. And whereas the contribution of our time, talent, and treasure moves us ever closer to an answer to issues of hunger and poverty in our community. Whereas the citizens of Currituck County can assist the Food Bank of the Albemarle website at www.afoodbank.org for ideas and ways to make a difference for local emergency feeding programs for the food bank, and especially for our hungry and needy during these 30 days of opportunities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Currituck County does hereby proclaim September 2011 as Hunger Action Month with the theme of 30 Ways in 30 Days in Currituck County, adopted this 15th day of August 2011. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is George Bright. I'm the Resource Development Associate with the Food Bank of the Albemarle. My comments will be shorter than the proclamation. That proclamation was one that was agreed upon by Feeding America. The Food Bank of the Albemarle is one of 200 food banks across the country that belong to the Feeding America organization. And every September, one of our jobs is to get as much news out about the issue of hunger as possible so that people really understand what hunger is all about. I've done 4 of these commission meetings today. The voice lasted right up until this point. I'm losing it right this second. But at any rate, this morning I was in a county that will go nameless, and one of the commissioners really just lit right into me. He said, "You're here telling us," I was sharing statistics with them, that 1 in 6 Americans is believed to be hungry or food insecure right now in the United States. That number in northeastern North Carolina is more like 1 in 5. 1 in 5 individuals really cannot tell you for sure where the meals are going to come from for the rest of the month. As somebody told me recently, I have too much month and not enough paycheck. And I understood because I see it every day working at the food bank in Elizabeth City, which serves as a warehousing service for 134 agencies across 15 counties. 4 of those agencies are right here in Currituck. But at any rate, that commissioner this morning, it was Chowan, the commissioner this morning in Chowan County looked at me and he said, "You're trying to tell us that there are hungry people in northeastern North Carolina? We just had a guy who was at our meeting last month who told us that Chowan County is the most overweight county in the state of North Carolina." 2 different things. 2 different things altogether. You can't look at somebody on the outside and know what their life experience is. That there's been a catastrophic illness or the loss of a job or any number of reasons why they and perhaps their children don't have enough to eat. That's what the food bank is all about. And Hunger Action Month is our chance to bring people to our website so that they can find out ways, big and small. From the very smallest little ways, we make suggestions on our website on the Hunger Action Month page on how people can get involved, how people can care. That's what being a northeastern North Carolinian has always been about. It's always been about that. I was born and raised here. It was no different in the early 50s, no different now. We've always taken care of each other, and there are people out there who need our help. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to recognize some volunteers we've got in the audience. Lower Currituck Food Pantry and Pillmore Food Pantry are here tonight. Would you ladies stand up?
Stand, yes.
Thank you so much for all you do.
If you would, please come to the front and introduce yourself. So, if you will, please.
I would like to introduce this first lady. This is First Sergeant Polly Gregory.
Allie Nodlet. I'm Rainey Murray with the Lower Currituck Food Pantry and also with Pillmore Food Pantry.
I'm Allison Belvin with the Lower Currituck Food Pantry.
I'm Patsy Casey with Pillmore Food Pantry.
Sam Casey with Pillmore Food Pantry.
You really can't believe how hard these folks work and how much they care about the people of Currituck County, but also the bigger picture. They work every day to make sure that people are being fed, and they could tell you stories that would break your heart, but that's not what we're here for. It's a positive message, and on behalf of the food bank, I want to thank all of you. I know what you're doing.
Yes, and on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work and what you do. It's much appreciated. And if in these times, economic times the way they are, if it was not for folks like you, people would really be bad off. So thank you so very much.
And we do it because we want to.
I understand that. With that objection from the board, I'm going to deviate a little bit, and I'm going to reopen the public comment phase. I see Reverend Powell come in. I know he didn't get here in time to sign up. I know he wanted to speak tonight. So with that being said, Reverend Powell, please come forward.
First, I'd like to say good evening to everybody, to
Good evening, sir.
commissioners, to everyone present. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the lot adjacent to my church, Samuel's Chapel. I believe it's owned by Mr. Copeland. I found out that the motion from the county commissioners a few months ago was overturned in so many ways because Mr. Copeland was granted by the county commissioners. He was told to remove the things that he had on his lot, the merchandise that he had on his lot. Then I found out that last week it was overturned, and he was not urged or don't have to move the material that's on his lot. And I'm wondering what's going on because we have a great loss in our church family. Miss Nellie Belly, she was a very adamant concerning seeing things done right in the county. She passed on yesterday. So I stand on behalf of her also to urge the commissioners, please, sirs, please, ma'am, please check into it again because we want justice done. And it's not that we have anything against Mr. Copeland, but we want him to be able to recognize that we do have a voice in Currituck County. And the county commissioner's job is to look out for the county. And I think he should learn that it's not all the time what you want, but it's what is best for other people and best for the county. And I urge the commissioners, please, if you would check into it further, because to me, he's just balling his fist in our face and saying that, he can do what he wants to do. But I urge the commissioners, please, sir, please, ma'am, please check into that for us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCree, would you try to kind of go over the legislative process of how it has come to where it's at?
What Reverend Powell is speaking about is...
I think we're all aware of that, but I mean...
So the public, general public.
Well,
Okay,
the process and why this situation is where it is today. Yes, the Board of Commissioners did deny a special use permit, as I recall, for this particular piece of property. The property owner then continued to utilize the property in a manner that was not allowed by the Unified Development Ordinance. He was cited by the code enforcement officer for violating that ordinance, and as this is right under our Unified Development Ordinance, he appealed the code enforcement officer's determination that he was in violation to the Board of Adjustment. Last Thursday night, the Board of Adjustment held its hearing on his appeal, and I'm not clear exactly yet on what the Board of Adjustment did because I haven't seen the order, first of all, and secondly, my understanding is that they've continued a portion of their decision to their next meeting next month, where I guess they will conclude on the final piece that they held off on deciding last Thursday night. So I'm not really sure what the Board of Adjustment has done other than I understand that they have allowed, among other things, for the large storage containers that are on the site to remain. I believe, isn't that right, Mr. Woody, as you understand it?
That's how I understand it, yes.
So I guess the matter is not really completed until the Board of Adjustment actually finishes its hearing on the rest of the matter and enters its order. Once its order is entered, any interested party has 30 days to appeal the Board of Adjustment's decision to the Superior Court for review, including the county. The county could appeal a decision to the Board of Adjustment if it feels like the Board of Adjustment has acted contrary to the county's ordinance. So there will be a possibility and an option for interested parties, which could be adjacent property owners and or the county, to appeal this matter to the Superior Court once the Board of Adjustment issues its final order. But I don't know how that order will read, obviously, until they do so sometime next month.
Would it not be beneficial for Mr. Powell to probably go to the next Board of Adjustment meeting as well? I don't know, sir, if you were at the last one or not.
No, sir.
Okay. But
Well,
would that not be beneficial?
I'd like to speak to this for a minute. First of all, he came in for a rezoning, if I remember correctly, because he wanted to put a trucking company next to that church and a daycare.
In a residential zone, that's right.
Residential zone.
Yes,
The
sir.
Board of Commissioners clearly said, no.
That's right.
That is not an accepted use next to a church and a daycare and the residents that live there.
That's right.
And it was continued to move in that direction. And there's a construction trailer out there to be used as an office. They have put in gravel parking areas out there. There's Conex boxes out there. And staff has cited repeatedly. It went to the Board of Adjustments. They asked for an appeal. They asked for a continuance. And then as I find out, we don't have to notify people when there's a continuance. So the people affected by it weren't even notified that it had been continued. So these folks had no way of knowing to come to the Board of Adjustment meeting to make their case before the members of the Board of Adjustment. So it was a one-sided hearing with just the plaintiff giving their side of the story, and the people affected by it were not notified, so they did not have an opportunity to even come to the Board of Adjustments meeting that was held. And I, for one, think that's a problem. I don't know how the county's going to adjudicate that, or if we have any say in it or not, but I have a real issue with the fact that these folks weren't even notified that it was going to be heard.
Yeah.
And then it was heard with nobody giving an opposing view of the issue. So that really bothers me that our system is set up where they were not notified. And my microphone is off, so I can start over again if I need to. But I just don't think it was handled properly.
I wasn't aware of the notice provision. I suspect, as is normally the case, the matter was published in the newspaper and on our website. But I didn't know until you just mentioned that anything about anyone else receiving notice, particularly if they had requested to receive notice.
Does not, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Does not the same provision of adjoining property owners have to be complied with as?
Not for appeals, no, sir. That may be something we want to look at, how we handle those. But the notice provisions for an appeal, because what Mr. Copeland did was he appealed the county staff. He appealed our notice of violation. The notices, the legal notice requirements, I'll say, are published in the newspaper and we put on the website. But we don't have an adjoining notice requirement. Of course, sometimes when appeals, there's not always an adjoining property owner issue. But that's certainly something we can evaluate as far as how we notice adjoining owners for appeals.
Was there a sign placed out there that it was being appealed?
No, sir.
So I would submit it wasn't properly advertised. I don't care if it was in the newspaper. There was nothing on that property saying that the notice of the Board of Adjustments when it was going to be held. That's my opinion. I'm not an attorney, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn one time.
I tend to agree with Mr. O'Neill on that, and I mean, we try to be as transparent as we possibly can with things, and when we fall behind on something like this, for whatever reason, if we don't have something that addresses it, then let's get something that does address it. And if something was done that should have been done differently, well then what I would like to hear is for you to be able to tell us how we can remedy that.
Well, if notice was deficient, then of course any decision by the Board of Adjustment would be problematic. However, my understanding is under our ordinance, in this instance, that it being an appeal from a determination by the code enforcement officer, the required notice from the UDO has been given. So absent any other showing that proper notice was not given, that would not be an issue, at least for the Board of Adjustment to consider or for a reviewing court to consider. It's certainly something we can correct in the UDO going forward.
And so they did not appeal our decision.
No.
They appealed.
They appealed staff's violation letter.
May I say something?
Certainly.
If there was a notice given out, even if it was in the newspaper, I don't receive newspapers.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know unless somebody called me or or wrote me a letter or something, and I wasn't properly notified, nor none of my members or anyone in our community, wasn't notified.
Well, I'm going to say one last thing. We just spent an hour in a work session talking about cleaning up areas. Mm-hmm. We just had a month ago a gentleman sponsor an amendment to allow him to put trailers and stuff everywhere. Everybody spoke and was very clear about cleaning the areas up. And now this has set the precedent. I don't know how you clean anything up now. If somebody that's clearly putting trailers on a lot can appeal it and be found that they can have all those trailers out there, I don't know how you're going to appeal or enforce the Unified Development Ordinance.
As I said, there are remedies available to the county as well as to adjacent property owners, and depending upon how the order reads, once the Board of Adjustment finishes its work, you may decide that you want to have a court review that order.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I could ask, could you provide us the basis of his appeal, or why he appealed it, on what grounds at the Board of Adjustment? In other words, could we see their minutes?
You certainly can. I mean, their action and, of course, their agenda package, everything is public record.
And if you could preliminarily put out a list of remedies that might be available to this board if we need to exercise them.
Yes. So as soon as the Board of Adjustment finishes this case and issues its order, I'll be glad to do that.
They'll finish. Okay, that 30-day timeline you were talking about, though, that starts at the end of when they finish their case, correct?
That's correct, and they have not issued their order yet. So an appeal to Superior Court must be within 30 days from the date the order is issued.
I had one comment from Mr. Powell, just so you understand. We are very interested in helping you solve this issue, but there are timelines involved in the public notice and due process that affect everybody, protect everybody's rights. Mm-hmm. And please bear with us. We'll do everything we can to get this to the proper conclusion, but it's not going to happen Tuesday. It's going to be a while before we do it, but we will be working on it, and I'm sure we'll make every effort to keep you apprised of what's going on.
Well, I appreciate just knowing that you're working on it. And if I will, I just want to let you know I'm not by myself. I have other members of the community in the vicinity and my church family. Ask them to stand, those who are with me. Ms. Easton. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight,
sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. McCree, does the Board of Adjustments have a timeline that they have to render a decision or finish their decision?
Well, in terms of finishing, I guess the evidentiary phase, they have to, within a reasonable period of time. They, of course, have held the bulk of this hearing. My understanding is that they've continued it to next month to finish up a remaining issue arising from the appeal of the property owner.
Does the county have any remedy to have Mr. Copeland stop any further improvement until the Board of Adjustments has made a final decision?
We'll have to take a look at that. There's some law that might not allow us to allow a court to enter an injunction against him during the appeals phase. However, he may find himself subject to continuing civil citations, and should he not prevail, then he would be subject to having to pay those to the county.
But if the Board of Adjustments has not finished their final decision, it's my understanding there's still some a phase that they're going through. Is that right?
I'm not aware I don't know whether they're doing any work out there or using the property in a prohibited manner at this point or not.
They're using what staff's notice was that the property is being used illegally for storage of equipment, which is not related to the use of an empty residential lot. The Board of Adjustment overturned staff on that. They voted and they made that decision. That order will go to the Board of Adjustment to their next meeting. There was another issue, a separate one that we also cited Mr. Copeland for as well. That other issue was tabled and will be reconsidered.
Can you elaborate on what that was about?
Mr. Copeland submitted the building permit that after the fact where he placed gravel on the entire front portion of the lot. We denied the building permit, saying that covering an entire lot with gravel is not typical or incidental to a residential use. He appealed that. That was the item that was tabled.
But he still continued to fill the lot with gravel.
He has not continued. He had ceased filling the lot with gravel. He continues to store storage containers and equipment on the lot, which we were overturned.
Is he maintaining that it's a residential structure on the lot? It's part of his argument.
He's maintaining that the storage items are used for the upkeep of the lot and to allow him to retrofit a modular building to become a residence.
It's got a construction trailer out there is about as big as from Owen to Butch.
Well, I think he was advised to do that by the former commissioner who sat to my left during one of the sessions, which I was present.
The key word is former.
Former.
Well, I think it's important to understand that the Board of Adjustments sits as a quasi-judicial board.
That's correct.
And they have heard evidence under oath, and if we tried to have any communications with them as commissioners,
It would not be appropriate, much like as we recite when you hold a special use permit, it's not appropriate for you to communicate with or anyone to have communication with you when you're sitting as a quasi-judicial body.
Okay. Mr. Powell, thank you for coming, and we certainly will look into it. Okay, moving on. Item 5, Roy Wilson, CEO, Lisa Wainwright, and Joy Futrell, Finance Officer, to present the East Carolina Behavioral Health Semi-Annual Report.
Good evening.
Too much to say. I'll get it out in a minute.
That's true. Nice to be with you. Joy Futrell is not here. In her stead is Lisa Wainwright, who is the Chief Operations Officer for our organization, and she will be presenting the financial stuff. I just wanted to, number one, thank you for your active participation on our area board through Commissioner Etheridge. It is vital, I think, at this point in time for us to have local representation in our governance that understands what we're doing and why we're doing it. The time is that Medicaid waivers are coming to North Carolina for behavioral health and developmental disabilities. We will be managing that waiver for our catchment area, our 19 counties. Other LMEs are working to manage that in their catchment areas. What it will do is allow us to make sure our citizens get served quickly, efficiently, and well, and that we don't end up in a fiasco like the state did a couple of years ago with community support. You may or may not remember that the state lost mega millions of dollars in that process because there was no control. Without the Medicaid waiver, it is very difficult to control costs, control services. So we have signed up. We're pledged to do our work well. I think we're preparing ourselves appropriately, and we should start the process of managing the waiver for our counties next April 1. Do you have any questions about that before Lisa talks about dollars?
Any questions?
Let's go to a quick question. What specific services do you provide in Currituck County?
What do we buy that is being provided in Currituck County?
On site in Currituck County, what services does your organization provide?
Well, I can tell you, and I'll get Lisa to assist, but crisis services are available all over our catchment area. And that's designed to serve people who have emergent needs. We will send crisis teams out to where they are in an effort to meet their crisis need and keep them from penetrating the system further or having to go to an emergency room and sit and take up a bed. I may have mentioned it to you earlier, but the work we're doing around those issues has reduced our admissions to Cherry Hospital by 60%. That means our citizens are not having to be handcuffed and put into sheriff's department cars, and the sheriff doesn't have to dispatch a deputy to drive somebody to Cherry Hospital in many occasions to bring them back. So that is a strong positive. If we are also focusing on managing the dollars, and that implies managing the private providers and assuring that they can do what they promise to do, have the quality, then I think we will be extremely successful.
I guess if I could follow up, what I'm asking is do you have any times that you come to Currituck County where I can go and get treatment?
Yes.
Or Owen could go and get treatment, or Vance, or whomever.
Because we sure need it sometimes.
Sit beside him, I need it.
Yes.
Vice versa.
Yes.
Yes, sir, if I may. In calendar year 2010, we served 588 individuals from Currituck County. The value of those services was $3.8 million. We were recently here, I'm not sure, Mr. Scanlon, a month or so ago, I guess, talking about trying to increase the availability of psychiatric services here in Currituck County, and we have talked to one of our provider agencies, ResCare, who will start offering that service. Your county dollars pay for recovery services, and right now those recovery services are being offered. There's both a male and a female wellness recovery action planning class going on at the Currituck County Detention Center in Maple. So that's part of what your county dollars pay for, are those recovery services. And they get offered, they have those services have been offered in the past through DSS. It's just the class that's going on right now is at the detention center. But we can get you more details on exactly which providers are delivering services here in Currituck County. But as I said, I do know that ResCare is working to bring more psychiatric services to this county.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before Ms. Wainwright or Mr. Wilson continues, I've been very impressed because I was on the Albemarle Mental Health Board, and been very impressed in how they've handled the transition. We've been there now 14 months. Mm-hmm. And Ms. Wainwright was former director of the state agency that oversees mental health, and we're very fortunate that she's with us now. But they have done everything, I think, above and beyond what normally could be done to try to make sure that services are provided in Currituck County where needed and when needed. And I appreciate what they've done.
And we'll be continuing to work on those issues and we're trying to, with this Medicaid waiver, increase efficiency, get to people quicker, serve them more in their community, preferably not in a facility, but in their environment that they live in. So the key is to try to provide care in as normal a way as possible, that we don't make the mental illness or the abuse worse. And that's what we're after. Do you have other questions?
One last comment I'd make is Mr. Wilson mentioned that admissions to Cherry is down 60%, and that's a tremendous cost savings because the sheriff does not have to dispatch a deputy, because if they get to Cherry, if Cherry's not available, then they move them to another facility, and Butner is the next closest one.
Yes, and many times they just turn them around and send them back.
Right. So that 60% reduction has a good impact because we keep a deputy here instead of on the road.
And we attribute that a great deal to those dollars that you provide that support recovery training. We have an organization providing recovery training in our communities, serving folks who are learning skills to stay well and what to do if they start decompensating and getting sick, and building support groups that are natural support groups. This is the most powerful program I've ever seen in my 30 years. It's being successful, it's being supported, and I think as it begins to grow, and the state has now bought into that as a good option for services, I think we're going to end up with a much healthier state and county and community.
We thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. We thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. So the money will be quick because all it is the budget. There's not any actual expenditures yet for this state fiscal year, and I believe you have a copy of this in your package. So just very quickly, the first part of the report details the revenues that we get in from other than from the state of North Carolina or the counties. The first $9.8 million that you see there at the top of the report, that's really just pass-through. There are a small number of providers who can't bill the Medicaid program directly, so they bill through us. We bill Medicaid, we pay them. So that money just washes right through our budget, back out directly to providers. The $231,000 that's listed as other local, that is interest income and the rent that we get on some properties that we own that providers are using to deliver services. The big item there next in revenue, the $6.9 million, almost $7 million in fund balance that is budgeted for this year, that is directly related to the Medicaid waiver that Mr. Wilson talked about. The state, there was a legislation that passed the General Assembly this year that requires all of North Carolina to be covered under one of these Medicaid waivers by July 1 of 2013. As Mr. Wilson said, we will go live April of 2012, and the state requires you to have all of your staff on board prior to going live. So we are hiring staff now. We did a press release last week talking about the fact that we're actually adding 120 new folks to our staff, and that's good news because it means we're going to have people in our 19 counties doing work that companies in Texas and the Midwest have been doing under contract for the Medicaid agency. So it's bringing those jobs back to North Carolina, and a lot of those folks will be able to be field-based and live throughout our 19 counties. The next section in the report are the county revenues, and as I said, we use these exclusively for recovery services and for crisis intervention training for law enforcement. And from all 19 counties, that totals just under $2 million. If this number looks a little different than the number that you recall in your budget ordinance that you appropriate to us, it's because on this report, this also includes the ABC funds that come to us to be used for substance abuse prevention. The next section are the dollars that we get directly from the state of North Carolina to operate mental health services. The $6.8 million is the dollars that the state pays us to be East Carolina Behavioral Health. So that pays for all of our staff, that pays for our 24/7, 365 hotline, access line that people can call in the middle of the night to get services that is staffed by trained clinicians. The almost $42 million, $41.8 million are the state service dollars. We did get notification last week that that number is going to be reduced by about $2.4 million this year. That's as a direct result of reductions that the General Assembly took in community dollars, and we will be having to take that out of our budget. And then the $1.1 million is non-Medicaid federal funds that come to us. Primarily, these are for housing type of activities. And then the bottom part of the report shows how we spend those dollars. $7.4 million we spend on our operations. That's about 12% of our total budget that is spent on us and on the access line and on those other activities in the community. $51.3 million goes out in fee-for-service payments to providers. The other $10 million actually goes to providers, but that goes on more of a grant type of basis. That's the way we pay, say, for group homes or for those kinds of services that don't lend themselves to a 15-minute unit fee-for-service. So our budget currently is just under $69 million. As I say, that'll go down about $2.4 million when we take into account the reduction from the state. Any questions? Yeah.
Mr. Petrie. County appropriations, that's the monies you get from the counties.
It's the money we get from the counties plus the ABC dollars that come through from alcohol sales. Yes,
so
sir.
Currituck County, $60,300.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Let me point out one thing with that, please. The state average per capita is, what is it now, $12 to $15 per capita,
Yes, sir.
and we're at
$2.
So by the way they do things, they're able to save the 19 counties tremendous amounts of dollars. I just want to point that out, what a good job they do managing the dollars they
So
get.
every county paid $2 this year?
What our board asked, sir, was for every county this year to pay at least $2 or what they had paid in state fiscal year 09-10. Every county except Pitt honored that request. Pitt did appropriate less this year. They're still over $2 per capita, but it's less this year than they had appropriated in the 9-10 state fiscal year. Every other county, we are very pleased, went along with what our board had requested.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. Before we move to 5A, I see we have some Boy Scouts in the audience tonight. I would ask you to come forward and introduce yourself and give us your name and
Rank and serial number.
Name, rank, and serial number. We welcome you here. Thank you for coming.
Matthew Maddox, first class.
Luke Beaumont, tenderfoot.
Joshua Beaumont, tenderfoot.
Taya Beaumont, tenderfoot.
Dylan Aaron, first class.
Austin Pope, first class.
Again, we thank you for coming this evening, and I wish I had something to give you, but
How about this?
there you go.
From one tenderfoot to another.
Boy Scouts will certainly help you to grow up to be fine young men, and we look forward to having you in our county, and we thank you for what you do. So thanks again. Next, we have Mr. Peter Bishop, and he is going to do a presentation of some sort. I don't know what yet, but we'll see.
Of your favorite sort, Mr. Chairman. We're going to be talking about economic development marketing this evening. That is the presentation. Nice to see the Boy Scouts here. I was once a Boy Scout myself for a short time. We may have a good project for you gentlemen out at the Maple Commerce Park for some trails we're trying to build, so perhaps we'll have to talk, Mr. Beaumont, a little later about that opportunity. That'd be great. Certainly. But again, good evening, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight about some marketing activities that we're undertaking for the 2011-2012 fiscal year in Currituck County. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. Perhaps not? No? Not working?
How's your batteries?
Ben's got it programmed so it only works for him.
No, maybe not. Did I get a little assistance with my slides, please? Thank you very much, Ms. King.
You've been wanting an assistant for a long time, haven't you?
I have. I guess I found one.
How's the remote?
Just make a little clicking sound each time you need to change it and show.
Well, thank you again, Board, for giving me the opportunity this evening. We're going to start off with a little bit of background about what got us to this place and developing this marketing plan and how these targets and tactics all tie together. I will talk about our key targets and our key tactics that we're looking to get into, but before I got too into the marketing presentation, I wanted to do a real quick catch-up on what's happened already in this year in 2011. And now it's pink. Fantastic. Next slide, please. Thank you. We've been really busy, even though we're just starting to talk about some of our marketing planning right now. We've had several different businesses that we've worked with throughout this calendar year already create over 100 jobs in Currituck County. We're working on over 20 active projects. We've got several grant applications that are in process or about to be applied for. We've seen generally a strong increase in overall activity from existing businesses interested in growing and new businesses looking to come to the county. We've seen spending and occupancy, at least in these summer months, better than it was in 2010. So we've seen some good increases there. We still maintain the lowest unemployment rate in the state, right here in Currituck County at 5.5%. We've been the lowest rate for about 4 months straight now, and typically on an annual basis, we're fighting Orange County for the lowest rate annually in the state on a year-by-year basis. That's something certainly to be proud of. And then the last part, this Board of Commissioners in the last 60 to 90 days has made several very important commitments, financial and capital commitments, to the citizens of Currituck County and to our future. So there's a lot of investing in the future going on, certainly at the Maple campus, where we have the COA Technical Training Facility. We have Maple Commerce Park, which is certainly near and dear to my heart. We have the cooperative extension facility that was built several years ago, the YMCA and community center, and then all the other recreational amenities, an additional dog shelter, and then some improvements at Currituck County Airport. So there's been a lot of investment on that Maple campus. We'll be doing some discussions with our friends in Raleigh tomorrow about those projects. Also in Moyock, the board has committed to building an additional wastewater treatment facility that will help take care of some of the commercial demand and other demands we have for that growing population base and bedroom community to Hampton Roads. So we're very excited about those opportunities to open some development up there in Moyock. And then finally, the consolidation of the utilities on the Outer Banks is an incredible vision position for this board to take, and a great investment to secure those assets for our future. And we always need to protect tourism. Tourism is the #1 piece of the economy in Currituck County. It's important we protect that asset and the resources that help drive that asset. So those are certainly some of the bigger aspects of what we've done in this past year. But to get back to where we began, I won't take too much time on this, but there was a process to get to the economic development marketing plan that we have today. We engaged in 2 very long and important studies, if you ask me. Back in 2006, we engaged with UNC to do a competitive, the Center for Competitive Economies we engaged with to do a visioning study for the county, and that was completed in 2008. And that asked some very basic questions about the economic structure and about what the county wanted to be, quote unquote, when we grew up. And that's who we were. We're a rural coastal community that's very dependent on tourism, that sees some fluctuation in its employment base. And who do we want to be? We want to be a more diversified economy. We want to be an economy that provides good, sustainable, year-long jobs for its residents. We did a second study not long after that study was completed, and it was a marketing study done by our friends at Lawrence Park, and that talked about better sharpening some targets and identifying some opportunities for that job growth year-round in Currituck County, and then how to put together a marketing strategy to get those and attract those type of tenants our way. And then we also did an economic development board project, which was a visioning of the county that was very similar to the first study, but it tied together how you market a specific area, what the community wants to see developed in that certain area, and it was very, very heavy in public engagement. Each of these processes, actually, if you'll remember, I know Commissioners O'Neill and Etheridge remember several meetings with the UNC study. We had several public presentations with the Lawrence Park study, and then most recently with this economic visioning, we had another set of public engagement meetings. So where did we get from all those studies and all the planning that we've done? Well, we've distilled down good targets that Currituck County has been successful in the past, currently has success in, and could grow on the success of these existing industries. And now, any economic developer will tell you that the first thing you should always focus on in your community is your existing business mix and the folks who have already invested, who are already from your community, and who are there. So certainly local and regional is first and foremost in what we're looking to do and grow here in Currituck County. Second, looks probably a little more complicated than it is, but defense and aerospace aviation fit right into some very large industry clusters that we currently have in Currituck County. Z Services, of course, and U.S. Training Center, formerly Blackwater up in Moyock, has been a big part of this piece of the target. But also on the aerospace and aviation side, we have Currituck Regional Airport and have made some major investments out there, and we're about to make another one with the COA Technical Training Facility with its FAA certified A&P program. So those opportunities are ripe for us there. We are very nearby the Hampton Roads area, which, as Mr. Beaumont would tell you, is referred to as Pentagon South, with the highest concentration of uniform and non-uniform military officers in the world next to the Pentagon. There's a great opportunity for both small business and bigger business alike to take advantage of that proximity. The next one is also a natural progression for Currituck County and Maritime. There is a long boat building and fishing history in Currituck County, and we also are adjacent to the largest port on the East Coast. So there are plenty of maritime opportunities related to the port and to industries that are supported by the port in Currituck County. Food and agriculture, again, brings in more of a historical perspective, this always being a very agrarian and rural community. Agricultural production and processing, as you see by the farm markets on the sides of our roads, is a time-honored tradition, and a lot of those folks still can and process some of their own crops. So that's something that's really grown out of the history here, but we've had a lot of interesting clients interested in being nearby the breadbasket, but also good shipping opportunities. You know, the coastal plain tends to be Northeast North Carolina, tends to be North Carolina's breadbasket, where lots of crops are grown for both feedstock and for human production. So we have good opportunities with our proximities there, and again, being close to a good market. And then finally, the newest of these targets that has really emerged in the past few years is the alternative energy field. And while it may be still some fuzzy science and some of the things that are going in this area, it's heavy research and development. These are all new jobs that we're talking about. These are jobs that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And this is new investment, new money, and a lot of it's based on the resources that we have naturally as being a coastal county and having a strong wind profile. And again, our competitive location advantage being nearby a large port of entry and a good employment and workforce base. Now, these key targets are great and they're fun to talk about, but they're nothing if not coupled with the proper tactics to try and get to the decision makers and get to the folks with these clients who can help direct them down to Currituck County. We're going to use the words targeting and being very focused throughout this presentation. We're targeting all of our promotional activity to those clusters, not all of it, but most of it to those specific clusters, to specific geographic areas where people know Currituck County, where they're familiar with us in our industry base, and we're always seeking to bolster those opportunities for advertising with PR, with editorial, so that we can back up an advertisement with a story, with a first-person account about how great Currituck County is, how great their workforce is, how it's going to be a successful place for their business. We're also working on a very balanced approach in marketing. We're not just going to do print, we're not just going to do online advertisements, we're not just going to do a billboard or two. We're going to do all these different things, and we're going to do them in a way that support each other and feed into each other. So we're looking at a combination of print media, of social media, of the Twitter and the Facebook feeds to get people more interested, to get the names out more. Doing e-blasts, which are group emails about specific, either monthly or specific news items that we want to share. Sponsorships and memberships, keeping the personal relationships very strong in the associations and with the industries that we're looking for. Very important for what we're doing. And then finally, trade shows and getting on the floor and actually doing the cold selling and shaking of hands and starting to meet people face to face and talk to them about Currituck County. And then the last piece, again, ties back into the most important job of an economic developer is keep things strong at home. Keep your communication strong at home with the businesses that brought you where you are, and make sure that you have that good rapport with the local community and development community at a local basis.
Peter, just
yes, sir,
just
please.
a comment. Looks like a lot of those things we're already doing.
We are doing a lot of these things. We've been doing them for a couple of years. We're doing them in a more cohesive and matching effort. We've gotten a lot of marketing materials that I'll pass out actually right now while I have a moment to match up. So we've got some branding that's matching up a lot better, and it's going with some of the marketing materials that we're putting together. This is a sample community profile brochure that we put together. It'll be on the next slide. But this is an example of some of the ways in which we're trying to target our local folks and our visitors through our Buy Local campaign, of course, that we're partnering with tourism and our chamber with. We have an example of a billboard concept that we're going to be putting together in the next 30 days. And then we do some advertising to our local folks through our Focus on Currituck magazine, which is a quarterly and goes out to every mailbox in the community. This is just a screenshot of that brochure that you've seen right there. For all the key tactics that we're working on, all these marketing tactics, we do have a strong local marketing partner in artillery marketing. We had a presentation at our advisory board just last month with Douglas Burdett, the principal there, and we've been very happy with their creative inspirations and how they're taking the message of Currituck County as a business location and really playing off of the Think Currituck web address that we've got with ideas and trying to get people motivated to come here. Our advertising schedule for traditional print media is several regional guides that are year-long, good publications, good value publications, and then your typical business magazines that would go to the decision maker or executive. Specifically in the Hampton Roads region, Inside Business is the executive weekly and magazine for the business community. We're really looking forward to have a strong presence in there, and also with the commercial real estate community, the folks that are bringing deals to us on a regular basis. Here's an example of one of those ads that we have put together. This is an actual ad that we'll be running. This publication comes out in October. This is the region. It was funny listening to the lady earlier talk about a 19-county region. This is a 16-county region. And our Workforce Development Board is a 10-county region. If only we could get all the regions to line up, maybe we'd be doing something here. But this is for our Regional Economic Development Guide. And this is another annual publication that'll be coming out in October. And this is the precursor to the business climate page. So that's why you see the climate change played off in the article. Again, always trying to get things to match up when people are reading, and so it all makes sense. And of course, the end result is for them to think Currituck. Member associations, again, I still feel that personal contact and interaction is the most important thing to sealing a deal, to getting relationships strong. We're members of many different organizations and go to a lot of meetings and events and sponsor different events for these different organizations. I won't read them all to you, but you'll see plenty of Chamber of Commerce's, plenty of Hampton Roads activity, of course, with our larger neighbor to the north. It's a natural place for us to get additional jobs and investment. And then finally, a sampling of some trade shows and workshops that we've gone to. This is actually what we've been to in the past year. So throughout the country, certainly, and with some help sponsorship-wise from our Northeast Commission folks, they help with some of the travel. But you'll see some of the different food shows, Economic Development Conference, aquaculture, which is, of course, closely tied to agriculture, and from my understanding, used to happen not but 200 yards from this spot where we're standing right now, where live eels were raised on the ferry docks years and years ago. So certainly the connection between the trade shows, between the targeted industries that we're looking for, and the materials that we're putting on the back end. I've talked a lot about what we're doing terrestrially and print and on the ground. Certainly the web is a ripe apple for all of us to get into. We're working on social media things. We're doing an update to our website, just a little one, but I put the North Carolina Department of Commerce and Thrive North Carolina website in the back because that's the direction where a lot of website design is going, more image heavy, trying to get content that matches up very well with the message. And again, if we can get a personal or some sort of testimonial on there about what makes Currituck County great and simplify the site visually and make it easier for folks to get what they're looking for in a few clicks. And then on the next slide, we're moving into the social media realm. It's not just for our 12-year-old and 14-year-old kids anymore. This is Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance, the major economic development organization in Hampton Roads, and they are using social media very well. Some of our other competitors throughout North Carolina and Virginia on the local level are using this as well. So before we get left behind, really the shift has been in paying attention and getting people to come to your site and to see your materials. It's now going from social media to the website and not vice versa. So people are actually finding you through the posts, through the Twitter feeds, and through the different LinkedIn connections that you can have. So we're going to use that tool to our best advantage and keep up with the times in this marketing effort. And I have talked plenty. I've gotten a couple of questions. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that the board might have.
This particular document here is, I think we have seen this already, correct?
You've seen a version of it. It's been updated. Yes, sir.
It's a new one. So
Yes,
this is a quick snapshot of selling points for Currituck County.
That's correct. It's meant to be a short piece, and we're also developing along with that a pocket folder. And then for each of these target industries, we're going to do a very simple one-page specific on why it's good for that specific industry to come to this.
Business, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good idea.
Mr. Chairman, Peter's also prepared this and put it on a small drive.
That's correct.
That he gives to prospective clients.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be good to give each of the commissioners one. There's a whole lot of this material is on that drive, jump drive, so that you'd have it, but he gives it. And I also want to commend, he's working very closely with our new chamber director, Josh Bass, and they're hitting the road together, hitting the ground together, and putting some things together in the community, and really generating some interest in what's going on in Currituck County.
And I think we would be remiss as well. I know a lot of this hard work has been done through the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Yes, sir.
And
oh, yeah.
My congratulations to them and our thanks to them as well. So.
I would also be remiss not to thank them with their assistance with this presentation and all through the marketing process and best identifying what the board's vision is and the community's vision and making sure our plan is aligned with that.
You have some very sharp people on there.
Well, certainly do. Thank you
Yes,
for appointing them.
Etheridge.
I'm on the Northeast Commission, and I got to say that we take a back seat to no one in what Peter's been putting together in terms of marketing and presenting Currituck County. And I can tell you that some counties are envious of us. There's 16 counties, as he remarked, and I think we are a leader in what we're trying to do, economic development, on our own, but with their help.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to reiterate as well for the Albemarle Commission, because I think we've done extremely well in getting workforce development grants, the different subsidies and grants that are available from the Albemarle Commission's funding, particularly in areas of alternative energy and things that are really timely for this. I do have a question or two, though, regarding the Maple campus.
Yes, please.
Out there. And I noticed because the chairman of the Airport Advisory Board is here in the audience tonight, their husband, and also Commissioner Gilbert, who's, of course, the ex officio to that. We were discussing not too long ago that some time past, I thought we had planned the construction of a 12,000 square foot commercial multi-purpose hangar out there on the airport, as well as looking at some kind of pro forma capability of developing additional aircraft storage hangars, T-hangars, because we have a waiting list, I believe, over 30 people now for that. And I thought maybe I would address really to Mr. Scanlon, who stays on top of these things more, but maybe either of you, if you could kind of give us an idea of what might be going on with both of those projects.
The 10,000 square foot, 10 to 12,000 square foot multi-purpose facility, we had started master planning that because we had a specific client that had shown an interest in locating to our airport. That interest waned, and that project has been set aside. Now, we have identified property or a space on the property for such a facility, but it's not an active project at this time to moving forward with. I do understand from the Airport Advisory Board that they have asked the airport manager to go back and look at. There are some companies that will come out and build hangars at their expense. They recover their investment and their profit by renting, and I believe he's assembled a list of vendors that would be interested and willing to come out and build more facilities at our airport. We do have a master plan out there that shows locations for several more additional ones of those.
Mr. Orr, to just piggyback on that a little bit, I was reviewing the 2011, I think, turned-in tip program, and we put together every year an updated plan of how we would like to use grant monies from the FAA, from the Division of Aviation, and I think in 2015 and further out, there are 2 T-hangar buildings and another commercial facility in that longer-range planning that would address some of these facility concerns, but they're a few years down the road, and I think they're after our Southern Taxiway project in the whole scheme.
Okay, I was just noticing I believe it was Pitt County in the County Lines newspaper, they were advertising a building that they had built in their industrial park for people to come look at, a shell building, which we had talked about the fact that at least gives people something to come look at, which may entice them to come to this area as opposed to necessarily being interested in that one particular building.
Yeah, Mr. Bishop, we have invested some money, no doubt, but I mean, I think we've invested for the future. We've invested in infrastructure and education in two better ways, and also tourism. Mr. Scanlon, the extra investment that we've made in tourism budget, advertising the last couple of years, has that not paid very good dividends?
Yes, sir, it has.
Yeah, very good return rate for that money, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for all you do, Peter.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. Bishop?
No, but go get him tomorrow in Raleigh.
See you at 6, Peter.
We'll turn you loose. We'll turn you loose with the big boys tomorrow. Okay, next we have item 6A, public hearing and action, Corolla Village Small Area Plan.
Chairman, can we have a 5-minute recess?
That sounds like a winner to me. My throat is getting dry. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, folks. Okay, we're back to item number 6, a public hearing and action on Corolla Village Small Area Plan. Consideration and discussion on the Corolla Village Small Area Plan. Ms. Holly?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board, for hearing the Corolla Village Small Area Plan tonight. This is the second small area plan that we've done in the county. The red area depicts the study area boundaries. Small area plans are generally more detailed than land use plans, and they work to address the specific needs in a community. This plan was extremely community-driven, and we established a vision through community input or public input that hopefully we will be able to implement in the long run. This is just a summary of our public input over the last year. This process started back in August or early summer of 2010. We formed a stakeholder committee early on in the process, and that evolved into more of just a public interest that we kept emailing and updating throughout the process. We held a series of public meetings, and we asked some very specific questions that would be the foundations of our policies and actions later on in the plan. All of our meetings we tried to gear towards obtaining public input. The questions were, what is unique about the Corolla Village area? What opportunities exist to enhance the Corolla Village area? What are the potential threats to the character of the Corolla Village area? And what is your vision of Corolla in the next 10 years? This are the answers to what is your vision of Corolla in the next 10 years from the public and the stakeholder committee. This was kind of the feedback that we received. And out of the first meeting, some of the things that rose to the top, these hot button issues, were pedestrian and vehicular circulation, multimodal infrastructure, parking, the divide between long-term residents and the new residents, and county regulations. In addition to that, there was a great concern that part of the study area would override through input a certain geographic area within the study area. And so we tried to approach that by dividing up all of our public input into east of Highway 12, west of Highway 12, and outside the study area completely, so we could tell which parts of the study area were responding and to see if there were any differences in the responses. And as you can see, these are the top 6 responses to our vision exercise. And although they're listed in different order, they're the same 6 concerns that are shared among citizens east of Highway 12 and west of Highway 12. And as a result of the input by the community and the stakeholders, this plan took more of a general broad brush approach and recommending additional studies or additional research, and not so much heavy-handed in the way of regulatory actions. Staff took a look at all this feedback and said, okay, how can we accomplish these things? How can we can we protect building styles and physical characteristics of the area? And all that seemed to be addressed by maintaining a small village character and atmosphere, and that's what became the vision of this plan. Our draft plan had several different sub-areas. We addressed public outreach, our vision, existing conditions and analysis, and tonight I want to try to focus on the implementation, policies and actions, and our future land use. This plan is very similar to the Maple-Barco plan, but we, in the Maple-Barco plan, we had some very specific actions. And in this plan, we have more generalized policies, and it acts as kind of our work plan over the next 5 to 10 year horizon. This is the future land use map that we developed for the study area. It depicts the locations for uses that are most desirable in the area. The blue depicts the mixed use category, and in this we hope that that would include commercial, residential, civic and institutional uses, recreational uses, and that this would develop in a compact style of development that would have a small village feel. It would have pedestrian interconnectivity. Buildings would be oriented towards the street, and that there would be preservation of open space occurring. In the residential sub-area, which you can see in the yellow, it would just be a continuation of the existing residential development, and that would be on a low-density approach. The civic and cultural designation, which you can see in the pink, just generally is our parks and open spaces, our public use facilities, our government buildings, and any special environmental and cultural destinations. The conservation area is shown in green. It's very similar to what you're familiar in our land use plan with as conservation. It offers protection to sensitive areas, wetlands, estuarine shorelines. However, in this plan, similar to the Maple Barco plan, we've called out to allow for limited development in the conservation area, provided that they minimize the impact to the environment and they protect view sheds. And we envision in this area that you would have eco-businesses that would have a water-dependent use necessary, or parks, open spaces that would occur in these areas.
Ollie.
Yes.
That one, I see the first track of green that goes to the ocean.
Yes.
That is the public access or DOT right-of-way that goes to the ocean. Is that also part of that green area?
The DOT right-of-way would be excluded outside that conservation. None of the right-of-ways are designated in the future land use plan.
Hard to tell from that map. I mean, that's an area we've talked about restrooms and facilities for years, and want to make sure we're not precluded from being able to provide restroom facilities.
I think that the plan would allow for development. The right-of-way is not designated. Right. And if we could work with DOT to achieve that, then I think that this plan would allow that. If we're going to develop in the area designated as conservation, I know that the plan speaks to trying to protect view sheds, trying to protect sensitive environmental areas. I'd probably have to look into it more closely to determine if that would work with the plan on that particular tract of land.
Yeah, I would have the same concern with that myself. I know we've tried for some time to get a bathroom facility put there somewhere close in that area. So
maybe we need to do a carve out of an acre on that site that can be moved according to where it will finally be situated, with that understanding before we get too far into this thing.
I don't really know about a carve out. That may be a way to do it, but I just want to make sure we got a bridge that's coming. We've got people that are going to the beach, and we have limited access to the ocean. And I don't want to take what is a natural, just no-brain access for public use and then put it off limits. That's all I'm saying.
I noticed in the existing plan that was all institutional civic. They've changed it to conservation in the small area plan. It's in blue there, just like the adjacent pink there.
I will point out too that the utility piece on the corner of Highway 12 and Corolla Village Road, and that's shown now in as blue and mixed use. That area, I know that there has been some discussion of trying to work with the property owner to obtain a public access at that location as well.
Where is that at, Holly? You said again?
On the corner of Highway 12 and Corolla Village Road, on the east side.
They've got mixed use.
Shown as blue and mixed use.
That's where the amphitheater was approved.
And there was discussion and even an offering by the property owner to work with us to have public access through that parcel of land. And we ask him that we finish this planning process before we work out some type of public access there to flush out this plan and see what it would recommend.
I don't want to belabor the point, but why was that changed from institutional civic to conservation when it's been institutional civic the whole time, I guess?
We tried in this planning process, and again, this is a policy document, we tried to look at pieces of land and determine a future land use based on, number one, who the owner was, and what the most likely type of use is. Being held by the state of North Carolina, most likely it's probably going to be some type of conservation area or some type of view shed for the lighthouse. This is a policy document. If the Board of Commissioners feels strongly that you want to create an allowance for some kind of public facilities and conservation, you can add that to the plan. Again, this is your policy, so I don't want to jeopardize the entire planning effort when that's something we can probably add as an allowance if that's what the board would like to do. Most of the public input, and I'll say this, I want to be on the record, most of the public input on there and the Corolla area felt like that was a good conservation use. So the map you have, I feel, was supported by, for the most part, the meetings we went through.
I agree, but there's not many areas you can put public facilities. We've got the parking lots at Whalehead, And I don't think the folks at Whalehead want public facilities in their parking lots. And other than that, I don't know where else you go.
I will point out, too, that as part of this plan, one of the actions that we identify is that further research and study into appropriate locations for public access, because that was one of the items through public input that was brought out as being extremely important in the future of this area, was to identify areas for public access and public parking. The map that you're referring to as well on page 9 of the plan is an existing land use map, and the map we're looking at now is a future land use map.
I don't want to beat it to death. I'll ask one other question.
Okay.
Will that conservation area allow public parking along that area where we would hope to have restrooms? I mean, we have an agreement with who is it, Ike, with DOT and someone else to allow us to put restrooms there, and I'm sure not going to adopt something that zones it right out where we can't do it.
We have talked with DOT, and there's a lengthy process we'll have to go through to get to that point, but we have had some discussion with them about utilization of the right-of-way for that purpose.
I think,
and the right-of-way is not designated. You can do the right-of-way, whatever we can agree to with DOT is completely fine. Again, if the go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think that we could work with the board if it's your wish to try to put a public facility in this location, that we could work within the plan to accomplish that without changing the land use map, the future land use map.
I think you just make a provision, if the board would like to, that we allow consideration of public facilities in conservation areas.
I think it is, because we've met with WRC numerous times who actually own the property, and cultural resources on being able to locate a restroom facility there.
Yeah, I just want to comment and specifically ask you a question. When I'm looking at the definition of conservation, it does not state that you cannot develop there. It does allow appropriate limited development to occur within the conservation. So I think the question is, and you specifically mentioned recreational type facilities, so do you feel like a facility of this type could be allowed inside a conservation designation?
I think it could. It would be specific to the site plan and something that we could work through as the site plan was developed.
And I certainly look at the language. I certainly could interpret this to mean that it does not preclude the facility, but how we site it, and citing it in such a fashion that we preserve as much of the natural integrity of the area as we can, which is the location. I think we've done that. We have actually done that, because
the intent of this district was not to the conservation, not to prevent public type facilities like a public access from being located in a conservation area.
And may I say, Mr. Chairman, it does speak to that. It goes further to say appropriate limited development may include governmental and community facilities, provided the footprint development is minimal. So I think there's ample ability to provide for a public restroom facility under the language proposed.
I just want to make sure it's not precluded. I'm not trying to slow it down.
Let me ask you, I think it's permissible under that language.
Yeah.
It seemed to me like we had a discussion not long ago. Any agent, a governmental agency, we cannot tell them what their land use will be. Is that correct or not?
Yes, except the feds. You can tell the
Okay,
state.
okay, that's the feds. Okay, I knew that we had that conversation. Okay,
That's right.
Okay,
But the state does fall underneath our ordinances like any other entity.
Okay.
I would be more comfortable if we do specifically mention public facilities in this.
It is mentioned.
It says,
it is specifically mentioned.
Don't want it left up to definition or
No,
interpretation.
if you turn to
Page 19 of the plan under conservation, 3/4 of the way down the paragraph.
I've read it.
says specifically, governmental community facilities provided that the footprint of development is minimal is permissible within the conservation area.
Well, my concern is what's minimal and what a future board might interpret as minimal. I'd rather just spell it out and just
Or a neighbor might interpret as minimal.
I'd rather have it set down in concrete so that we know in the future what they can do and what they can't do.
In the interpretation of those requirements left pretty much up to us when it gets around to doing what needs to be done, unless we're not the us that's here at the time, in which case they could overturn it anyway. So we can try to insure against it, but there's no guarantee that somebody won't change
There's
it.
no guarantee.
But I agree with your intent. I think you're absolutely right. We want to make sure we don't impede our ability to accomplish the limited development that we wanted to do.
Just to let everyone in the audience know, this is the first time we have seen this document ourselves. We did not have a work session on it, so it's going to take a little time for us to go through this thing ourselves. Ben, do you have any suggestions?
The plan's a policy document, and this map's just honestly really a small component of the plan. The purpose of having conservation areas is when you take a broader area, you try to figure out where's the best place to have higher densities and more intensity, while you're doing that, setting aside some open space or keeping some of what makes Currituck unique available. I tend to agree that the definition of conservation is fairly open-ended. Again, ultimately, it's your decision as a board if you want to put something there. It's your plan. If you want to tighten that up, so to speak, then we can certainly entertain that. We're just trying to set a general philosophy for how Corolla Village will look in 10 years.
Mr. Chairman, ask a question along with Commissioner Etheridge. I was thinking to myself, what is minimal? And different people, Commissioner New, everybody's got a different interpretation. Can we designate X number of square feet of property? Is it possible? I mean, and then we take minimum out of the equation. Is that possible, Mr. Wood?
Not without further study, and I'm not sure that with a broad policy document you want to get that detailed.
Okay.
But it is possible.
All right, not to beat it to death, one last question. Why was it taken out of civic cultural? Because civic cultural allows for everything that we're talking about here. Provides for the community's public, nonprofit facilities, parks and public spaces, natural resources, includes civic uses, public use facilities, government operations, environmental, and cultural destinations. Why was it taken out of that designation and put to conservation?
It wasn't taken out. The map you see on page 9 is a depiction of the existing land use, which we designated as institutional and civic, meaning that it's owned by the state and used for research or educational purposes. So that's just saying what it is being used as today. Not any type of designation for zoning or future land use. It's just saying what it is today. The map, the future land use map on page 18 is just a plan for the future as far as guiding growth and development, just like with our land use map, about what uses are appropriate for certain areas in the study area.
So the lighthouse property is now being proposed to be utility? No, civic and culture, I'm sorry, I see it myself.
And
Change the colors from one to the other.
I'm just telling you, that's when we try to do it, that's the first thing that's going to go to cultural resources from certain people is it doesn't allow for it under their own plan. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about it.
I have a question, too, without getting into all the details, because I don't want to belabor the point either, seeing how much material there is here that we haven't reviewed. But in the goals of ensuring that there are no non-traditional, historic-oriented buildings built in the Heritage Park area there, obviously the Wildlife Center doesn't comply with that. This would preclude us from anything else that came along that was built to more contemporary standards from the standpoint of handling tourists coming through as well, if that wasn't allowed in these areas.
This is a plan, and it's just a general policy about how future development occurs. It's not a zoning regulation that requires certain types of architecture, certain types of development at this time. And when we go through, I have, as an example, I have a policy in action related to land use, which talks about architecture. And one of them, one of our recommendations is to just, in general, when we review applications, to promote and work with the applicant to try to utilize a coastal village feel type architecture. And then we go on to say, well, we haven't determined what that is yet, so we want to do another study and work with the public to determine what is a small village coastal architecture. what does that look like for Corolla Village? So this document doesn't dictate that buildings have to be built in a certain way or standard. It just recommends. So we would work with an applicant on a case-by-case basis.
Well, Mr. O'Neill's point's well taken. If something in there would indicate that that was their intent, the first thing that would happen were we to attempt to do something other than that is they would throw that in our face.
I think the concern that I have, and maybe Commissioner O'Neill and Roars also, is we see it with the land use plan. That's a policy document, but people read that and interpret it as an ordinance. And that's where the distinction needs to be made. It's not an ordinance, it's a policy document, but that's why we get a lot of issues a lot of times, because they don't realize that the UDO is predicated off of the land use plan, but the land use plan can be changed. It's not something set in concrete, and that's the concern that I have with it. I don't want a room full of people up here if we get to the point that we can build those facilities, saying, well, it's conservation, you can't build there, even though your document says so. That's my concern.
And I tend to have the same concern myself about that.
So
I'll make a quorum.
I'm right there with you.
Can address that and not hurt the integrity of what's been put forward. I think we need to look at it.
I think the civic cultural designation does that.
You can change the text within conservation, or to maintain the integrity of the conservation, you can change that particular tract to another category, such as civic, cultural. I mean, remember this. We put this together based on our experience and what we think's a good direction. We got public input. We bring that to you, but ultimately it's your decision. It's your plan as an elected body. So we want to have something that you're comfortable with.
Well, why couldn't we call it civic cultural conservation? Like you said, a new designation.
You can. I mean, that's certainly an option. Again, I don't want to. There's been a lot of work that went into this. And I'd hate to lose the whole plan over, one designation on the future land use map.
I don't think anybody has a problem with the rest of the plan. I think it's that one piece, one tract of property. The rest of the plan looks good to me. I mean, y'all did a good job, but I just have concerns with that designation, because I know it'll go right to Raleigh that they're trying to violate their own provisions, and then the state will quit working with us on it.
Yeah, there's a number of other parcels that were currently used in a different fashion that have become conservation under this, and I don't know that we have any real heartburn with that, but we've specifically had issues with that one parcel before, and we don't want to encourage issues to arise again.
I could even buy into what Owen said. Cut out a piece of the size of what we think that would take for what we want to do, and designate that as civic cultural, and then leave the rest of it in the conservation piece.
My recommendation
at this stage, I would recommend, if you're having an issue with it, you just completely rechange it and call it a civic and cultural and move on with the entire parcel.
I would agree with that.
That's fine with me.
If you choose to approve it, then I would include that in your motion to amend the future land use map to reflect that.
Okay, go ahead, Holly.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? It's not going to be called civic cultural conservation. It's going to be called civic cultural.
Right.
We're going to drop the word conservation out of it.
Last point on this slide was just to say that in order for our plan to be achieved and to be successful, and to really be a true community-driven plan, we actually have to implement the plan. Several of the policies and actions that we're going to look at in the next two slides require some type of budgetary impact later in order to implement these items, and just want to make you aware of that. And those could be budgetary impacts in the sense of we just need additional expertise to assist us in looking into additional study or research, or it could actually be some type of physical improvement. The policies and actions are broken down into several different sub-areas that you see before you. There are 13 total policies in the plan and 24 actions. And this is a broad working, like a work plan for the planning department over the next 5 to 10 years. And we hope that by the time that we're ready to redo this plan in 5 to 10 years, that we will have accomplished all the actions listed in the action plan. The land use component just looks at how do we retain the unique small village feel that's present there in Corolla, and how do we ensure that any future development is consistent with the vision and compatible with the existing development. In transportation, we're looking at how to improve and resolve the traffic congestion in the area as well as the pedestrian circulation. In the environmental section, we're looking at how can we protect the natural resources that are there. Community heritage and sense of place, we're looking at what's unique about Corolla Village and how we can again protect that. In economic development, we want to know how can we make the area prosperous in the future. We're going to look at two examples. One's a land use example and one is a transportation example, and it breaks down the policies and actions in the plan. We envisioned that the policy LU1 recognize the uniqueness of the study area by maintaining desirable characteristics such as building style, scale, and architectural features, and by supporting development concepts that foster and promote the character, culture, and history of Corolla Village. We envision that broad statement would be used by you as you review development applications and by staff as we work with applicants in going through the development process. The actions listed under those policies are how we accomplish each policy statement. We have a more of a general action that just says, as we review development applications, we want to promote development to be constructed in a style that looks similar to what's already there, and as well as in keeping with the Outer Banks style architecture. The second action says, well, we want to establish a committee. We want to do a little bit more study and research into what it means to have Outer Banks style architecture. And so we felt that was one of those hot button issues from one of the very first public input meetings that we couldn't really get consensus on, and so we felt it was just more appropriate to deal with that in a completely separate process to allow for public input and feedback and in an effort to move the plan forward as well. The second example is the same principle. You have an overarching broad policy statement that would be used by staff and the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board, and you have a series of actions that would be used to accomplish that policy. And this one's a little bit different. This one is where we get into our budgetary impact later on. Action TR1 recommends that we conduct a study of future pedestrian scale improvements, including walkways, paths, benches, signage, and bike racks that would help with the pedestrian movement in the village. So that would take additional money at a later point in time to implement that action. In addition, like in TR4, that's another component that might have a budgetary impact. We're going to determine appropriate locations and allocate funding for wayfinding type signage, and that would help assist visitors in moving around in the village. Action TR3 looks at researching and creating incentives that could be incorporated into our UDO, and that would be more of the regulatory action approach. So we've got kind of a research and study. We want to look at it a little bit further, which may lead to a regulatory action, and then we have a third component that may require additional funding. So I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have at this time, and we would hope that you would take action on this agenda item tonight.
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Holly.
Okay, thank you.
We have two people who are signed up to speak. First, we have Mr. Earl Weimer. Please come forward and give your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Earl Weimer. I live at 1125 Persimmon. I live 4 blocks from that area you're talking about. And Paul and Paige did not participate, so she's probably not going to be as much of a thorn in your side. I would just encourage the board to accept the plan maybe with some modifications in that, but this is a giant step in maintaining the character of Corolla Village. I was a pilot for 30 years, and I've traveled all over the place, and there's villages like this that are really successful commercial ventures where they're in themselves are attractions. And I think I live 3 blocks from that area, and I walk to the village. I walk to the Whalehead Club to watch the fireworks, and so I walk through that area all the time. So I'm very concerned, and I'm really encouraged with the process that went on with this. I think we had pretty good turnouts for all the presentations, and the feedback that I get is that people are very encouraged with this. We don't want to see a McDonald's down there. So it's not to say that they wouldn't come in, but if they have one, we want it to look like Nags Head style or village style. So
Corolla style.
Corolla style, yes, exactly. And so I just encourage you to go to pass this or adopt this as a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Ms. Sharon Twitty.
Well, gentlemen, I came today to say congratulations to Currituck County for finally stepping forward and recognizing the significance of this Corolla area. It's rare indeed that a county has so many significant landmarks that are in walking distance of one another, and we need to work hard to nurture it, to protect it. And I came to say congratulations for having Ben and Holly worked so hard over the past couple of years to reach this conclusion. I think the plan that they presented reflects the community and what they in Corolla would hope, what their vision of Corolla down the road is, to include the conservation easement that came under discussion. I think that we all hope that perhaps there would be another area that could be designated for public access and bathrooms, because we don't want one that is in the viewshed of the lighthouse. There are not many lighthouses on the East Coast, and we'd be disturbed if something happened to interrupt that viewshed. So I came to say I completely support the small area plan. I hope that you will too, but we do disagree over that one parcel, and we'll need to work through it somehow.
Thank you, Sharon. As you know as well as we do, property is at a premium over there, and there's just so many. There's not many areas whatsoever that's available to even do anything like that. So that's kind of what our thinking has been, and it certainly is not to. We certainly don't see that whole area developing into anything. We see it as having a small bathroom facility there and something maybe where the lifeguards could use is a staging area, and that's it. And the parking that's down along the road just as it is today. And so, that's kind of the vision that we've had for some time, and we've been working hard with the agencies to try to put something in place so people are not going into dunes and relieving themselves. I mean, where we can have a facility there that's first class, and people can have adequate restroom facilities. So, anyhow, yes, sir.
Well, I'd just like to remind you that the county does own 7 acres or over there, right off of 12, and we would love to see you develop a community center and have a large bathroom facility there for the public, and we have pretty much outgrown the library facility, and we fill that every time we have some kind of presentation, and we would love to see that. I thought it was on the long-range plan.
I think it is. Dan, is that not correct? Still under the long-range master plan?
Yes, sir, it is.
But I mean, the bathroom facilities. I mean, that's great. But people who are at the beach.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I'm saying? That we've got to have something there, and porta potties are just not the. I would much rather have a decent, nice-looking building than I would a bunch of porta potties set up there. Personally,
I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill and I came on this board December of 1994, and we've been working on that project since that date. And we're closer now than we've ever been.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment about the input, the stakeholders, the people involved in the process. Of course, we give great weight and credibility to the people that live in the area because you're there all the time. But really, the consumers are actually people who are only here for a brief time, and they rarely get a chance to voice their goal or vision for what facilities they want to use. When we're looking at development of a resort area, the ultimate consumer is a person we have to consider as well. So we don't want to do anything to dramatically perturb the situation as you have it over there as residents and as business people, because you talk to them a lot too. But we just feel like they haven't had any opportunity to make any input to this plan, and what we're trying to do is take into consideration the things that are going to make them feel more comfortable and at home while they're here for the brief period as well.
I think in the past we even went so far as to try to incorporate the architectural sensibilities and everything in the facility. At one time, we even had an agreement where the WRC was going to jointly join us in a facility, and we're going to have training or school type things out there, and actually
natural to the beach itself.
Natural to the beach, and it's not going to be outdoor showers and people lined up, but we do have to have some facility somewhere, and there's just very limited places where we can go that we don't have to spend millions of dollars to get to the beach.
And it needs to be next to the beach, not down the road.
Yeah, it would actually enhance the walking part. People could actually go to the beach, then go into the village and eat and do different things. That's just my thoughts.
Well, on that note, I do think that at Twitty & Company, we represent the consumers. We rent all those vacation homes to the consumers, and so I do think we have an eye and an ear to their interest, and I would want to be sure everyone understood that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thank you. That being said, is there any further questions or comments? I'll ask this board for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan put forth by planning with some tweaks in the conservation area to change to civic cultural.
Just that one track,
Just
not
that one
anything else.
Just that one track to allow for any future county facility that we need.
We have a motion. Do we
I
have a
second that motion.
Hmm?
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Mr. Woody. Next, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
I'd like to make one comment, if I might, about the consent agenda. Discussion with the county attorney earlier and Mr. Etheridge. Some of us, Ms. Gilbert and myself, have been approached in the past regarding the first item in the consent agenda, which is the demolition of a building which is a Rosenwald school, which is down in Coinjock. And I don't know if all of you are familiar with the Rosenwald Foundation and what these schools represent. They're a significant part of the heritage of the Old South. In the early 20th century, Julius Rosenwald, through his foundation, constructed more than 5,000 various buildings, schools, homes for teachers, shops, and this is a good example of one of them. And it's the kind of building that if we had the means and the time and the public support, it would be ideal to rehabilitate and use as a tourist attraction, to put someplace where people could actually come and see this as a part of Currituck's history. Our experience has been with the project we've already undertaken, the historic Jarvisburg Color School, that the costs seem to run astronomically beyond what our wildest expectations were. Conceivably, a project to rehabilitate this building could run well over $1 million, because the Jarvisburg School will probably approach that by the time it's finished. And there will be a period of time with the passage of this ordinance whereby it can be investigated if there's a public entity, any group of persons that would like to come forward and try to put together some kind of effort to, in fact, save and rehabilitate this, that there's ample opportunity to do so. But it's going to have to be done with input from the public. It's not something that the county can undertake on its own, and I don't think we could justify the use of county funds to make a major part of that happen. So just to let you know, if you're interested in saving this school, it's time to act, because we've got to do something with it.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. Any further comments?
No.
Mr. O'Neill, did you have something to say?
On what, just follow what Mr. Rohr said. I know that there's been some Rosenwald schools in other states that Lowe's has a foundation set up where they donate or give grants to help do things like that. So there are sources of grant monies out there that might be available.
Okay, moving right along. Next is Commissioner's report. Mr. Martin.
On that same Rosenwald, the old Rosenwald School, it had been envisioned by Barbara Snowden, the county historian, that that it could possibly be saved. I even thought about perhaps moving it down beside the Jarvisburg School, but it is a part of our heritage. It should be saved in somewhat. I'm very sorry that the county doesn't have the funds necessary to go ahead and save that part of our heritage. And it's a shame that we would let it go, and I would urge anyone listening that please step forward if you can. And I'd also like to say happy birthday, John. Commissioner Rohr will have a birthday on Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Etheridge.
Only thing I will say is if anybody out there are praying types, pray that we get rain. We desperately need some rain.
Yes.
I've been in this county 60 years now, and this is the driest I ever remember it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. O'Neill.
I have nothing.
Ms. Gilbert.
I would just like to congratulate Chip's Wine and Cheese Shop. I attended the ribbon cutting or last week, and I'm excited that there's another business that's flourishing in Currituck, and encourage everybody to please go by there and visit. And also to mark your calendar. I know that Commissioner Rohr has echoed this a couple times, but September 17th, the Currituck kids will be having a family fun day at the Rural Center on Spot Road, and I encourage you to mark your calendar for that.
By the way, did they send any samples of cheese along with when you come back?
Oh, there was wonderful samples.
9 o'clock, and I'm getting hungry.
Well, they're closed. They close at 7 p.m.
Oh,
but
you got any
they do have some tastings available.
Mr. Petrie.
I would like to echo what Commissioner Martin said about our school board. It was really exciting to know that money is tight, and these people rolled up their sleeves and balanced the budget, and like he said, for the first time in 40 years. And I really think we're so lucky to live in Currituck County. From top to bottom, everybody's doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rohr.
I just wanted to mention one new business that I happened to stop in and visit today. Driven by it a couple of times, but down right in front of the golf course, south end of Grandy, is a new business called OBX Sports and Outfitters in the old Cedar Log building down there. And it's really fascinating. They have got sports equipment for just about every kind of sport you can imagine. But the thing I was most excited about is they're going to be opening a gun shop, and they're also setting up an archery range, or they're going to come to us and ask for permission to do that. And I think that's going to generate a lot of interest down there. But it's the first place I've ever been where you can, if you're here vacation, you can rent a crab pot for the week for $15. I've never seen that before. But they've got live minnows and fishing equipment and camping equipment, even MREs in there if you're, stocking up for hurricanes. And it's well worth a stop in to visit them. They look like nice folks.
They might can rent a crab pot, but they probably can't set it.
Probably not.
I have nothing. Mr. Scanlon, manager's report?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
We want to welcome you back, Mr. Scanlon. We're glad that you and your wife had a wonderful vacation time last week, and you're back all safe and sound. And Mr. McCree done a wonderful job for you in your stead, and thank you, Ike. And
Gwen told me she was running the county while Dan was gone.
Well, you know how it is.
Okay.
She runs it even when I'm here.
He runs it when he's here.
Yeah. Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session in accordance with, let me find it. When was you doing the sheet?
Ike's getting ready to tell you.
Tell me, Ike.
143, 318.11A. What he said. I believe.
What he said.
You're making that a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?